Welcome to the Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. It's Sunday evening. I'm joined by Nick. No, Nick. So sorry.
That's not Nick.
I'm joined by Tom and
Dylan.
Neil.
Okay.
Tom and Neil have joined me today live, as well as everyone on Twitch, everyone on the podcast, and those thugs from YouTube. So, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. Neil, how are you?
I'm good, buddy. Good. I've had a chill, as I said to Tom earlier, off cast. I had a chilled day. My wife gave me a lion, and then I was even allowed an afternoon snooze, and I went for a walk. That's been my day.
What a great day. Tom, how you doing? You well?
I'm doing all right, yeah. I had a good day. Seen some mates. I've also been to Warhammer World to get some green stuff.
Oh.
And then when I drove in to my driveway, I realised that I hadn't got the green stuff because I'd instead walked in, seen Be'lakor, got distracted and bought it. So now I don't have green stuff, but I do have this.
Do have Be'lakor.
I saw 9 on the shelves. There are now 8 because I bought this one. Okay. I think the person behind me bought one as well, so maybe 7. But go and get yourselves Be'lakors if you live near Nottingham, guys.
Yeah, there's a Be'lakor available. What is it that inspired you to pick Be'lakor up?
The fact that I've got 2 small Be'lakors and I can put them next to the big Be'lakor on a shelf and it'll look really cool.
That's so good.
That's pretty much the entire reasoning for that one.
That's really worthwhile.
I've always been a big Be'lakor fan, so it's one of those where I like to use a model where I can, and so now he's got a new one. Got to use it.
Got to use it. So today, everyone, we're just going to be, normally on a Sunday evening, we would, of course, be talking about the pairings for the WTC Greek Hammer. That being over, there's a whole bunch of really cool, like, community kind of, like, subjects that Neil and Tom are both very interested in having a conversation about. So that's today's show. They kind of, they run the gamut from judges at events to the professionalism of events. I think is kind of at the core of most of the conversation. To, I guess, to the veracity of the game at the minute with the truly ludicrous. Although we can't, as of yet, we don't know how that final game is going over in.
I think it's going to be
It's already over.
It's going to be a win for the AdMech. John Lennon is back. John Lennon is backed in the corner, and I don't see where he can get out of that corner. The AdMech player, is a really solid player, and he's actually part of Team Battle Brothers, which is Sean Naden's team. And the list is designed with AdMech in mind. It's a super solid AdMech list, and it creates a real problem for Dark Eldar. You know, it's got loads of floaty boaties, and Dark Eldar don't like lots. Dark Eldar don't like lots of T7 tanks, basically, and that's what it's full of.
Amazing. So we finally found. It turns out the meta will adapt. We just had to wait.
And it's not even adapt. This is a solid list. This is the kind of list that Rickard's been playing for months. It's a pretty solid AdMech list. It's not really changed from the norm, to be honest.
Yeah, like there was nothing in there that really shocked me. If you guys aren't aware of what we're talking about, there's an event in America at the minute. I think it's in Texas. Dallas. Dallas Open. And it's an 8-round event. Going into the final, there are 2 undefeated lists. There's an AdMech list, which is very similar to AdMech lists that we have talked about ever since we did the AdMech show on the Honest Wargamer with Rickard ages ago. Electro Priest, 3 units of Electro Priest inside. The floaty bogies, some the transport, some 3-quart Scorpus destroyers, and then one helicopter, and then I think 2x2 dragoons with the las cannons, as well. So like there's just a bunch of stuff. I think one of the interesting elements there is Drukhari suffering to the thing that they're so good at is that transport issue. They've got they're almost being out transported in that situation, and everything inside is arguably more deadly than the transport belonging to the Drukhari. So yeah, very.
Well, it's not even it's not deadly. It's just that Drukhari, apart from they've got a few Dark Lances, but there's not enough to reliably pop those tanks quickly enough, and it's just going to be a struggle then because the AdMech just take control of the board and just say, you come near me, I'm going to jump out and I'm going to mortal wound you to death. And Drukhari don't like being hit by mortal wound output because it goes straight for their invul saves.
It does straight through. So that's kind of Neil. Do you want to kick us off with the first kind of topic today?
I don't know. Should we get into my which rad?
We've got a list that Neil posted, don't we?
Yeah, let's.
What was it? You want to talk? Should we talk about the Dallas Open? Tom, do you want to throw up a picture for us?
No, but I will take a screenshot of it and I will post it in the chat, and then you can put it in the description. Thank you very much. Yeah, so, Innes on Twitter decided to screenshot a picture from a stream of someone who was walking around the Dallas Open today. Yeah. And this guy who was wandering around, or he just took a picture, I can't tell which. But anyway, Innes has acquired this picture of a board.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Remy
Sass has noticed the dice.
That I've put in the chat. It appears to be 2 L's that have been pushed directly tip to tip in the center of the board, and they are massive. I really hope someone's cheating, because if they're not, that is bad.
I mean, someone has definitely shoved the terrain together there. Whether it's deliberate or it's like last round at the end of the previous game. It could be the previous game.
You can't tell me that's an accident when you walk up and see that and think, yeah, that looks about reasonable to me. Come on,
Tom. Right, honestly. So how many times has it happened when you finish a game, you push terrain out of the way to put your tray on the table to count the dollars up,
sure.
Right? And then obviously a lot of time people walk away, not readjust the terrain. Yeah. How many times do you think that happens at WTC, and in the next round,
loads.
Right, players come up to me going, "Is the terrain meant to look like this?" And it's like all shoved into a corner. And it's like, do you think the terrain's meant to look like that? Of course, it's not.
The point is, though, people see it and they think, I should ask the ref and make sure the terrain looks like that. If you walk up to a board and see that abomination in the center,
know it's wrong.
You know it's not meant to be there.
Yeah, it's not. It's honestly not tippity top, is it? Ultimately, as terrain, and I think that's kind of one of the criticisms. And I think maybe cuts to the heart. It's kind of it's not meant to be like you guys can see it on the screen if you're watching live, and if you're watching back on YouTube, obviously don't say nothing threatening in the chat because you mental the YouTubers. This is my new thing, and I'm really enjoying it. Cuss40k, thanks for resubscribing. Wargaming Dad, thanks for resubscribing to the pair of you. Thanks everyone for joining us live. Not the greatest terrain in the world either. Also, Neil, those logo objective markers, which I loathe. Although probably
I've told you, Rob, when it comes to WTC, we're going to have logoed objectives everywhere with your face on it. Every single objective is going to have your face on.
Well, they'll all be replaced with the team who's defending as objective markers, okay? When we're defending as Team Wales, I'm taking all the Rob faces off and slapping a big dragon on the board, okay?
Yeah.
It's a board that we're defending. Okay.
No, I actually had that as a legit idea for the WTC Patreon, that someone could pay like €200 to get their face on the objective markers on the stream.
Jesus.
I'm sure somebody would.
Bits of anatomy.
Hey, can I just say a big shout out to whoever's actually playing on this game, though. Really important to me that as you can see, they've got a baggie there of fruit and a banana. So just keeping up that potassium and also that vitamin C levels, really important in an 8-round event that you stay hydrated. Yeah.
Can I make a point about, look at the size of that L compared to the size of the man on the other side of the board?
yeah. He's disproportionately not the biggest fella.
That's a big L or a small man.
Thanks, War Chevy, for the bits donation. But this kind of brings us on. I think this brings us on to the professionalism of events. I mean, we could talk about Drukhari. We'll pivot to that in a bit. But the professionalism of events and also what's going on at this event. As well. This is a Warhammer 40k tourney from Wish.com. Now, I've watched.
My wish is not to play in this event.
I mean, to be fair, right, we're bantering, but to be fair, they did whack up. It was about a month or two ago. They whacked up some pictures of the boards, and it was like shocking, quite frankly. And then you have people like Nick Nanavati and that going. I was coming to your event. I'm not now. If that's the terrain. And so, to be fair, lots of TOs would go, screw you. Don't tell me what to do, but they actually said, okay, if the terrain's not that good, tell us what to do to improve it. So they were open to feedback, but I do feel it's a wee bit of a case of, it's a 160 player event, I think it is.
Yep.
So maybe it's a little bit of a case of, they kind of bit a little bit too much, a little bit more than they can chew. They haven't got the time to update all the terrain to 9th that they need to get updated, because it is a big jump from 8th to 9th.
100%.
It's going to be a continual conversation.
That's going to have bad impact, though, right? No, it's fine. I'm just saying, if they tell Nick to fuck off, then it's going to have a bad impact, right? So, also, I want to thank Cuz40k for 100 bits, by the way. Much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Cuz. What up? I'm going to say that, I think this seems like an example of just a tournament that's growing too fast, too quick. And I think, that's hard really for TOs to say no to, especially in America and Texas, where they've just got room for days. Their restriction isn't really room. It's how many tables and boards can they get out?
But the thing is, I had this conversation with Mike Brand recently about tournaments and stuff, and I think there's this there's this kind of notion that TOs feel that they have to make their tournament as big as possible. If they don't make it as big as possible, people won't show up. And personally, I think that's a fallacy. I think that there's a lot to be said for smaller events that are, we'll say, have high quality tables, high quality boards, and this kind of thing. These mega events where it can very quickly become very unwieldy to run effectively.
So, in fact, I was having this conversation earlier where when I went to the London Tea, the massive one with 500 people or what have you, I played 2 people that I knew. I played James Grover from Goonhammer, One Wing, and I played James Ramsey, right? Yeah. If I go to, like, let's say a Caledonian event, which aren't a thing anymore, but it's like 100
Are they not?
I don't think so. No, I think 10 to go to X-Wing, yeah. But it's like 100 people. It's all the old school players from the UK. I know I'm going to probably play 4 or 5 people that I know I'm going to have great games with, right? And that's not to say the other 3 people aren't good games, but I'm literally going and I'm playing my mates in a competitive setting, right? And that doesn't mean that necessarily bigger events are bad or anything, but that's part of the appeal for me is that I get to go and hang out with my mates all weekend.
Yeah.
I'm personally more likely to go to a smaller event of 100 people, say, where I know I'm going to get 5 great practice games, compared to a massive event where my first 3 rounds are probably going to be a little bit easier, shall we say, just because I don't really care about the ITC points, and it's just not for me. But some people get a kick out of that. That's up to them. However you get your kicks, I guess. But it's not.
And that's the crux of it, isn't it? There's so many people in this community that sort of they're chasing their ITC points so hard that it's like their decision, they will say their customer decision making is basically based off how many points you can get by going to X tournament, which is fair enough. If that's your hype, that's your hype. But I feel like it's either this big issue, and this kind of taps on what you talked about on Thursday, Tom. You talked about how 40k tournaments in the UK are super serious now, and the AOS ones are the fun ones. They're the less serious ones, they're the funny ones, which is sort of like, there's this homogenization of tournaments that's happened. I really, really kind of like upsets me quite a bit. Back in the day, 40k tournaments used to be really diverse in the UK. You used to have super serious ones, less serious ones, loads of different point sizes, rule sets. Like it was, you could basically pick and choose whatever you wanted, and it was great. But now, with like ITC and this kind of like, explosion of what came 8 Fed, ITC, and everyone wanting their little ITC internet points. I mean, I'm jaded. I'm never going to do well, so I'll slag it off, yes. But because of that, it feels like, again, that TOs feel if they don't offer, a cookie cutter LGT or cookie cutter LVO tournaments, then people aren't going to show up. And maybe those people won't show up, but I think they're excluding so many other potential tournament goers by doing events like this.
I think that's one of the things you want to talk about, right? Is like diversity of events and style. Like, so one of the things that we've hosted for here at the TSN Arena for 40k is there's a singles event, pretty classic, pretty normal. It's only 16 people, that's fine. But the other one is 4 teams of 4 can play, and they'll all play each other over the course of the day. I think that's a great way of you and your club mates, kind of what Tom was talking about, where you're with your friends, which is great. But also you're going to play a bunch of new people and make some new friends, which I think is a big positive as well. Yeah, also being able to go through the practice of the pairing session, because ultimately there's very little opportunity to practice that in the wild. Like, it's quite a rare opportunity case. There's very few team tournaments, and there's definitely very few team tournaments of any particular scale. Or even if they are of a particular scale, their irregularity means that you really can't get the reps in. So I think little things like that are really, really useful. And I think, super, super good. Go on, Tom.
Yeah. I was talking about the team event in the Team Wales chat today, and one of my teammates came in and called it a bit weird because it's a one-day team event. And we don't really have those in the UK. And that's weird, isn't it? It's not. I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's really good because we're offering something that isn't a thing at the minute, right?
It's weird that it's not a thing.
I know, yeah.
But one-day tournaments in general, I used to also run lots of tournaments in the UK back before I left to Sweden, and probably my most successful tournament was a one-dayer. It was Vapnatak up in York. There's a wargaming trade show called Vapnatak in York in the race courses, which is an amazing facility. Yeah, I was part of the gaming club that ran it, and I said, well, I can run a tournament here, like a one-dayer. So it was like 1,000-point one-day tournament. And we had I think by the end of it, we had 100 people showing up for a day. We had people driving down from Scotland and everything just to play. Because a one day was so good for them. They could come on the Friday, play a game of 40k on the Saturday, chill on the Sunday, and drive back in the evening.
Yeah.
And it was just the amount of draw for one day. It's the same here in Sweden. When I put up a one day RTT here in Gothenburg, it sells out straight away. It's like bam, gone, filled. way quicker than a 2-day, even if it's the same size, because it's much easier for people to do a 1 day.
Yeah, and again, it's also more relevant, right? Like,
yeah.
But like, so one of the things you really wanted to talk about was the variety of events, Neil. Like, and what is it? What is it that you want to specifically touch on, like with variety? Like, what do you think is lacking or missing at the moment? Obviously, in most places, events at all, because lots of the world, like, it's really easy to forget that, like, the chuckle fuck state of America that is Texas. Love you all, by the way. You know I do. But like, have opened up completely. Like, someone in the chat earlier was like, why are they holding huge events right now? And it's like, it's a super fair point. Even with the volume of vaccinations that they've got going on, even with everything else. However, they are whatever. Like, so it's dominating the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Because it's one of the only ones out there. But most people aren't even having events at the moment. But when events do come back, what do you feel? What do you want? Like, what do you want to see?
You see, like I say, it comes like this thing that I think that over at 8th edition, everyone's kind of just like completely flipped to 2-day events, LGT LVO clones, nothing else. And again, it makes it very stale. Personally, that you're playing the same cookie cutters thing in out. I got very bored by the end of 8th for tournaments I was going to. I was only going to tournaments to hang out with people, really. I could have gone there and not played games, and I probably had just as much fun. And I know a lot of the people I was talking to, like here in Sweden, the UK, and America, was also the same thing. It was becoming very, very stale. Same rule sets, same missions, same terrain, even the same layouts every single board you went to. And so there's that factor. And again, it's just this inclusivity. It's that if everyone plays the game in exactly the same way, it's not going to suit everybody. It's not going to. There are some people who say more into hobby, more into certain things, and if all the tournaments are the same, you're excluding such a lot of potential audience there from it. Or you're saying, you're basically saying our way or the highway, which for me personally, I think is sort of very, very naive to say you have to play the game this one way or there's no other way to do it. Because, Rob, you're not a hyper competitive player. You're very much into the hobby. You're very much into making your armies look good and that. Your attitude to go to a tournament, how you build an army is going to be very different to my attitude, very different to Tom's attitude, because we all want different things out of it. Mm-hmm. I just feel this, like, it all came up because basically Mike Brown was sort of like, we were chatting about stuff, and he said he was unhappy that WTC is using 20-0 in their scoring. That we're not doing the same. We're not going to just keep. We're not just going to. No, but his point was, why are you making rules for it? Why are you changing things? And I was like, well, because this suits us and this suits our event, and it's, variety is good. There's no issue with it. I would be very upset if, for example, Adepticon stopped making their own rules and stuff like this.
You would be upset.
Yeah, because I like the fact that Adepticon has its own rules. It has its own missions, and it's just out the box. And a lot of tournaments do that. I feel that you very much. We're such a diverse group of people that play this hobby, and not everyone. And we need to make sure that our events reflect that. Otherwise, we're going to stagnate, and if we stagnate, we're going to die on the vine.
Okay.
And that's my worry. We're in a really good space right now. We've got a lot of people engaged in tournaments, a lot of people engaged in our events, but we need to make sure we cater for them all to keep them all interested.
Yeah, I think I agree with you 100%. I actually think that the point we talked about a lot. We talked about this a lot on the Thursday show. Well, not a lot, but a bit. I think ultimately what's happening is we talked about having midweek tournaments because of all the people who work in industry who just don't get any time off at the weekends. I know one of the things that you've talked about a lot, obviously, is when the WTC is, specifically because many people are teachers and the summer holidays is the best time to get the largest group of people available.
Yeah, right? Not just teachers, or if you work in industry. A lot of industries, they say you will have mid-July to mid-August off. Like a lot of factories close down for a period of time as well. But yeah. So there's a lot of things. I think midweek tournaments, by the way,
do you not feel, Tom, like as someone who's very much been like a push against like the ITC scoring system generally and not too fussed? Yeah. How do you feel? Like, how do you pick and choose events? Like, do you just want competitive? Do you just want competitive practice games for WTC setting? Is that really what you consider a one-day event to be?
So, a couple of things on that. I wouldn't say I'm personally like pushing against the ITC as a whole, right? I don't think that other people should not enjoy it just because I don't find value in it, right? I think the scoring system is an exercise in trying to validate your own opinion of yourself rather than just being confident in yourself, right? And some people need that, and that's absolutely fine. with me going to events, I never actually ever even think about ITC scoring when I go, because I just don't value the ranking system at all personally, right? I know my value. I don't need a table that tells me how many plebs I beat up in a row to tell me I'm good, right? Because I just don't think the system holds up particularly, right? And when it includes an elo system, then maybe we can talk. But for now, I don't think it's my thing. So what I'll do is when I'm thinking about events, normally I'll go to 1, maybe 2 events a month, because I don't want to overstretch myself and go to an event every single weekend. As someone who works Monday to Friday, it's not really my thing, right?
Yep.
So First of all, I'll do that. Second of all, if like a mate's running an event, I'd be tempted to go down, because I know, like, I can help them, sort that out. If I know lots of other mates of mine are going to an event, that's perfect as well. But equally, I don't want it to be over full of mates. I just want enough mates that I can go and I'd have loads of people to chat to. But equally, meeting new people too is great, right? And also, because I live in Sheffield, I'm an hour away from Element Games. I'm an hour away from Warhammer World. I'm half an hour away from Sanctuary Gaming Centre. I can pick and choose what I want, so I can keep all those free things on there. It's mainly about locality, because I don't like spending money on hotels. I'm a TA, so I don't like, earn a mass amount of money. So when I'm already buying armies and buying tickets and paying for petrol, I don't really want to spend money on hotels if we can avoid it, right? London was always the exception, just because historically I've done quite well at London through price support, okay? So I think I spent a lot of money last London, but I also bunked with a couple of guys as well. And I was in the Invitational. That was a fun experience. So I want to do new things, and I'll probably go to like 1, maybe 2 big expensive events a year, like going to the States or going to the WTC or going to London, because honestly, going to London and going to Nova is comparable in terms of costs, to be honest. So it's mainly about making sure I've got mates there, making sure that knowing that I'm going to have some good games, meet some new people, but also being accessible for me.
Okay. That's fair. And I think that covers the subject fairly well. I think, like, for a lot of people, just getting to any events at all is currently, like, not really in their scope. Like, for England, it's sometime in the next 2 or 3 months is when we can start to see events really kick out. Other like, places, our good friends in Europe, they're going to be struggling for a while. North America, obviously, the US, just like, there's just locks off the cocks. Let's go.
Yeah, they just got mental.
Yeah, they're just shooting into the sky. Whereas Canada, nothing. The East, Australia, they're all good. So like it really varies. I think one of the things I would say, Neil, about the non-variety and the homogeny of the 40k community, I think is genuinely a positive thing in a bunch of different ways. And I'll say why. Because if locally all of the events are the same, then that's problematic. However, if internationally all the events are the same, that's quite nice, because it means that it brings the community together. So the guys playing Australian 40k, if they're playing the same setup as the guys playing in England or Sweden or Russia or wherever, playing the same as the American guys, it means that there's like a global kind of platform that everyone can discuss. And I think that is a huge positive. And I think, but if there were no options locally, that would probably be where it started to become problematic, and you'd be like, oh, that's a bit of a shame. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by locally compared to international then? Because if you're local to Sweden, then people come to my events in Sweden, aren't they there for international?
Yes, right. So what I mean is when you think about like big ticket events. So let's pick LVO, Adepticon, WTC, right? Yeah. Let's say whatever Australia's largest event is, Sweden's largest event, and America's largest event are. If they're all the same format, then that's fine. I don't think that that's problematic. I think what's problematic is if I was in Sweden and the only events were that formula, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, so, I get you.
Yeah. So, like, locally, like, the big one is the standard, that's cool, and a bunch of other events are something different. That's great. And I think that's a positive. And I think we'll see that. Like, I don't know who was saying in the chat a minute ago, like, every event is just selling out, like, immediately. Every event is just sells out immediately right now. Mm-hmm. So, like, there's no dramas. I think, like, people can experiment and play around, and I think that's really exciting. I think that's exciting for everyone.
I think it is. I think I would like people to not be afraid to experiment and play around. That's kind of my point. Okay. I'm worried that I like, for example, this is just I'm in the like a ITCTO chat, which is a really big chat there, and you've seen lots of pushback from people who are saying, "Hey, I want to try something different. What do you guys think about this?" And like the overall pushback is, "No, don't be stupid. Just do the same as everybody else, you know. And like, for example, we're talking. I'm basically myself and my friend Joachim have obviously got a gaming venue in Gothenburg and start running tournaments. And we've been planning out, you know, what tournaments we want to run. So we run an event every single month, and it's like, well, let's run a, you know, straight up GT, like just add the rule book basically GT, and then the next month let's run an event that's got, you know, really kind of like alternative missions, out of missions, and like a huge like half the points from hobby score, because that would be cool because I'd bring different people in. And even that idea's had pushback. Because there are people like, no, you got to just do. It's got to be the same. It's got to be the same. It's got to be the same because I want my ITC points. And it's like you got to be. I think as TOs, you just not to be afraid to say, actually, I will offer something else. Because yes, there is a vocal minority that is screaming for what they're screaming for everything to be the same because they want to score their ITC points. But there's a lot more people out there than just those people in the hobby. I think was it Val talked about on Canhammer that he read somewhere that some like sales guru extrapolated as about 1.5 million concurrent. Customers for GW around the world based off sales and stuff, right? How many people are on the ITC rankings?
12,000.
12,000. How many of them have scored? Have got 5 games to their name? Say 2019.
Like very few.
Yeah,
I think number 1 has 5, and then number 2 has 4. So I don't think it's very many at all. Yeah,
exactly. So realistically, it's like, well, you know, how much a percentage of customers, how much a percentage of this hobby are ITC chasers?
Maybe
1% is that.
We're a niche within a niche within a niche.
Exactly. So I think that my thing is, Rob, I don't want TO. I think the TOs should stop being afraid that the very, very, very minority are vocal saying do it this one way or not. Open yourself up, do things. You bring way more people in, and way more people doing the hobby. It's got to be good.
Yep.
My main focus is more people in the more people playing games at tournaments and having fun are my like 2 key components. Being at a tournament and enjoying the experience and having fun at said event, I think is one of those really important things.
Yeah. All
right. So let's move on to like the hot topic of the day, still from last week, talking about the Drukhari, because they've taken a kick in today. Have they?
I have one list specifically.
Yeah. From one list specifically.
One list, but we'll say one list archetype. But
yeah. Yeah. So you were a lot of conversation about how well Drukhari, even though it's an 8-round event, and even though they haven't taken out the event, so I think that'll damp the fire. I think a lot of people really wanted Drukhari to take the event out so it could kind of like add fire to the storm. This might have. This might not. Go on.
Can we just dispel a myth immediately that this Drukhari is a high skill cap faction when people can pick it up within a week of it dropping and smash events with it?
Sure.
Well, it's as I mean, Brad Chester said he won the tournament. Was it last weekend, the weekend before? And he said it was like he said excluding playing the AdMech team, excluding playing the AdMech player he played in the final, it was 40k on easy mode. And then when he went first as the AdMech and therefore got to shoot the planes and takes the planes down.
I forgot to bring my planes back.
It became AdMech it became easy mode against the AdMech. He said it was easy mode 40k.
Hey, I was playing the Scottish Vice Captain yesterday with my Drukhari. I took my planes off turn 3, forgot to bring them back on for the rest of the game, and still won 20-0.
This is the this is our 40k expert here, Rob.
I know.
But
so Valerie says there's still a chance Drukhari will take the event. Thank you very much, Valerie. Appreciate you. Now going into day 3, which is today, because it's a 3-day event. The Drukhari were on a 79% win rate if you take out mirror matches, which is frankly not high enough in my opinion.
I'm glad they FAQ'd it, though.
How high was Slanesh at his height, Rob? They were really high in AOS, weren't they?
Yeah, 78%. 78%.
Where was Daughters of Cain? It was almost at 80% as well, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Daughters of Cain were 80%.
Okay, so we're second to Daughters of Cain.
It is an issue because at the end of the day, people are saying when AdMech comes out, when these other armies are coming out, we know Sisters do well into Dark Eldar. We know that AdMech do well into Dark Eldar. And we know that Grey Knights will eventually come out and do well. You can explain to everybody why you think that, Tom. You know, but the problem is because it's like, well, but we're still kind of got a way overpowered codex that's come out, and it's like even if this was like a normal codex release period, like they actually release codex as quick as they want to, it just feels like Dark Eldar just have so much way over so many armies.
Yeah,
you know, Space Marines make up 30% of the meta, just power armor. Probably 50% of the meta is power armor. Why give an army just like an auto win versus half the other game?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't understand why Drukhari are so strong right now, and I think I've got a reason why for this, and it's about how the game itself is played. And this is why Sean was already doing well with Drukhari before the codex even dropped, specifically a Drukhari mix with some Eldari, right? Some craft worlds. And the reason is the entire game is about constantly trading. If you're paying for durability and you stick that in the middle of the board, it doesn't really matter too much because eventually you're going to fall over anyway and you're not going to get those points. Or you can just lob things with obsects onto those objectives and take you off regardless, right? What the game is about constantly lobbing things out to kill your opponent's things on objectives and then being able to do that for as long as possible. Yeah. When you've got an army that builds all of its points cost, so for example, let's say you have one unit and another unit, and these units are identical apart from one's T4 and one's T5. The unit that's got T5 is probably going to be more expensive just because you're paying for the premium of having the extra point of toughness, right? If you are taking Drukhari and you're not paying for the premium of being more durable, all of your points essentially go into mobility and the ability to kill things. And when the entire game is about running across the board and killing things and not worrying about you die so long as you've got more stuff left, which you're going to have because you have just spent more points on that because you're not having to overinvest into useless mechanics like durability at the minute, you're going to have a faction that does very, very well in this mission set. We talked about this a lot at the start of the edition, where one of my main complaints with Ninth is I felt that like the missions were very one-dimensional. And guess what? When you get one army that's specifically designed to do that one dimension fantastically well, and you release its codex with a massive power buff that gives it a lot more damage compared to what it used to have, it is going to cause some serious problems, and that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like to take this sort of the League of Legends analogy that we do a lot. You know, there are obviously champions reaching League of Legends, and there are obviously certain champions counter other champions, but it doesn't mean it's an auto loss. It's that that matchup is not an auto loss. It's hard, it's challenging. You're on the back foot, but there are still plenty of counterplays. There's still plenty of counterplay and therefore avenues to win that matchup. The problem is that right now you've got Drukhari who are sitting there, and all the Space Marine books have come out. All the Space Marine books have come out for the loyalists, basically. You know, Death Guard have come out, Chaos Marines have come out. I don't expect Chaos Marines to really answer this. They'll be similar to what they are now, and you've got a faction that's not that there is no counterplay. There's teams that there's zero counterplay.
It's kind of like, here's my example. You can have a champion that counters another champion in lane, right?
Yeah.
This isn't like they've released a champion that counters all champions in the lane. This is like they've released a champion that presses his level 6, presses R, and it deletes the Nexus.
Yeah. There's no
playing against it.
There's no counterplay, and okay, great. Admech will come out and they'll answer it, or Sisters will come out and they'll be really good against it. But what about all the poor fools who play Space Marines? What about all the poor fools who invested in Death Guard?
And it's cool.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah.
Have they thought about getting good?
It's true.
Like, I'm sick of just everyone not trying harder. Is the main focus. Like, when you're up against a 70% win rate army, what you really do is just need to be better and try harder. Like, and I'm sick of people not like approaching it in that way. If I'm honest, I think one of the interesting things that this is actually a huge pro for team tournaments because you only have one singular instance of this. Like, for singles, not as positive, but I think ultimately, like, it makes pairing processes even weirdly more interesting because there's obviously that big bully in the pack. That's in there. So I think that's an interesting kind of conversation. Actually, the more imbalanced the game gets, or the more like it skews to different factions or different builds, actually makes, I don't know if this is 100% accurate, but I think it's pretty spot on, makes team format even more interesting and more enticing because you're able to deal with that, which I think is a huge positive, right, for the WTC and any team events going forward.
100% agree. 100% agree. Team events, because of the nature of pairings, it makes it way more interesting. But it's just, we're not only playing team events is the problem. I don't know. I just question the validity of the design process when you just create an army that invalidates such a huge chunk of the player base, basically.
Yeah. And I do think it's a mission problem. Think it's a mission problem. I don't think it's entirely irredeemable. I don't think we need to come back in a year's time and say we need a new Drukhari book because this is stupid. Yeah. I think creating better missions that aren't so one-dimensional, which I've been harping on about this for almost a year now, by the way. This isn't like I saw the Drukhari book and I decided that the reason we need to change the missions is because of this book. I've been saying this since July. You can go back and check it. If you create missions that give you more than one win condition, you will end up getting more varied gameplay. Not, I win 60 games and Sisters win 19, which, by the way, is favouring Sisters. Sisters should never be winning 19 games against Drakari out of the ITC Battles information. So,
I mean, that's it. I think the only redeeming feature is that obviously not that many people play Drakari compared to Iron Hands. It's not going to be as quickly prevent a problem, but it just feels like an issue to me, really. And I don't think saying the new AdMech will solve it, great. But by solving Drakari, aren't they therefore going to be even more powerful than?
Yeah, it's like releasing
aren't they?
Cats,
if they're going to be the ultimate counter to Drakari, does that therefore make them the ultimate counter to everything that Drakari counters now? And therefore we start this ridiculous escalation of power creep.
Yeah. Because I still think I need to test it, but I still think Grey Knights can beat.
Explain this to me. Explain this to me, because I was out walking with Dylan when we had the podcast. I didn't hear it all. I'm really intrigued.
I've got a list that I want to try out. So what they're able to do is you need two things. Firstly, you need to be able to shut down the mobility of the Drakari and allow yourself to move freely around the board, which Grey Knights can do very, very well with a combination of Astral Aim, which is the most powerful ignores line of sight mechanic in the game when you combine it with Cybot Ammunition and Retarded Conversions, okay? You secondly need to be able to take the hit if you are going to walk into that area. So you walk in, you walk up, you shoot off the transports, which we've already tested that against Harlequins. I killed 3 transports in a turn, no problem. And then you push out and you're not too scared of the racks. Grey Knights can do both of those things. They're able to kill all the transports in 2 turns consistently through shooting in the psychic phase, gating, Cybot Ammunition, boom, easy, done. You could potentially do it in 1 turn if you get the full combo off, especially with the recitation of projection. Secondly, if you push out 1 unit of Terminators or Paladins and another one behind, you're able to screen really, really well, even if you're able to do it in 2 ranks, because you have access to so many durability powers. For example, you can counteract the the +1 to wound with -1 to wound from yourself, from Armored Resilience. You also have a second mechanic which does a similar thing in the form of transhuman physiology, but neither of those 2 things are most important. You also have access to a -1 damage stratagem and invulnerable saves across the board when you push. So you effectively have the ability to clear out the Drakari in waves as you push forward, but also not have to just sit off and take the hits and then push. Because if you do that, you're going to give up too many points early game. What you want to be doing is playing aggressively with the Grey Knights, pushing on the Drakari and tanking it as you go, which Grey Knights can do both of.
Cool. Yeah. I did not think about that, actually. I mean, Grey Knights were one I completely blanked them out. My problem is I generally think Grey Knights are space users, psychic powers, and therefore moved on.
Well, I mean,
but what you're saying is very legitimate.
Yeah, Craftworld's historically been my best faction, but I think at least for about a year, Grey Knights have been my best one now. So whenever I see something, I just think Grey Knights because I
think one of those things for most players is that unlocking a problem of a new faction, whether or not it be super strong or not even super strong, is you already have access, like Tom does, is knowing what the tools you have available in your army already are. Like Tom knows what his tools are, so like when he sees the problem, he goes, "Oh, I can unpick that. I've got the lock for that already designed," which I think is interesting. Ultimately, one of the things I think, Neil, you wanted to talk about was community comp. That was one of those suggestions.
Oh no, it was there's a lot of people screaming for community comp. There's a lot of people screaming, get the comp out for Dark Elder. I don't think comp is the answer, though. I think my sort of pushback is there's a lot of people screaming for comp, but the problem is outright banning the codex is not the answer. And the problem with comp is if you comp something, if you create comp, I used to have comp at Battle of the Chumps, for example. There's been lots of comps around Sweden, very famous for very comprehensive comp.
Quickly, Neil? Is that all right? Because I need to ask a question. Can you define what comp is? Because technically, changing a mission set is a form of comp.
Yeah.
What we're talking about specifically here.
Comp is, you can change the mission set. Comp is when you change the rules of the game, be it the mission set, be it which armies are allowed, be it, you're saying that, you're saying that Dark Elder are so good that they only get to play 1,500 points instead of 2,000 in 2,000 point tournaments. It could be limiting certain units or anything. It's basically you're putting you're putting restrictions or changes onto the games or onto armies that aren't in the rulebook. And I think the problem is when you do that, all you do is you shift the goalposts.
Yes.
And it may solve a problem, but it creates problems elsewhere. I think the fundamental issue is, I think, sorry again said, GW doesn't care about balance. I think that's the fundamental problem. And again, I'm looking at this not just from a, tournament perspective. I listened to a podcast you see with a bunch of kids who basically did a podcast. It was like recommended by Val, and it was actually really interesting. And the kids were all going, it sucks to play. I play NIDS. My friend has Space Marines. I can't win against them. It sucks. I get shot off the board all the time. And this is the problem. If you create an army that's so good against so much of the faction, it's just going to turn people off. Iron Hands turn people off to the game. That's a fact. And I feel that Drukhari could well do that.
I don't think that they'll be. I don't think that they'll be in the numbers that we saw.
No, I think that's the saving grace. There's not enough Drukhari players to do it. That's the saving grace so far. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we need to be really conscious of. Is that of course, there isn't as many of them, so it's going to be fine. Personally, I don't want comp. And I'm gonna put my flag down now and forever. I want it to get worse, not better. I want it to be wild. I think it leans into, it's funny, it's hilarious. Maybe it turns people off to the game. Weak people, Neil. Cowards is who it turns off to the game. Yeah.
Clearly I'm weak then.
I want people throwing their hearts into their army and throwing them at 80% win rate armies and just screaming into the void.
We've already had this argument, so I'm just leaving it. You carry on, Neil. You get it.
Anyway, so that's fine. Yeah, let's just go. Let's just go wild. Let's go nuts. Because ultimately, one of the interesting things, because we don't really look top up very much, but we need to kind of have a discussion. Because one of the things that I think is done really well by the WTC and by you guys is that you've tried very hard, with the mission packs, as an example, to design a terrain and maps that work really well for the game. Really important, with the Q&A that you guys have. The FAQ, sorry, that's the one. The FAQ that you guys have. You have answers to frequently asked questions. Some people might not agree with them. They're not official answers, but lots of people disagree with them. But it doesn't matter because what you're doing is you're giving your players. There's a community of people who you represent. You, Tom and Ishik, you represent a group of people, and you say we want those people to have a fun game. So, if there's a question that comes up, some arbitrary third power has decided this is the situation. Perfect. I think that is really positive for the community that you represent. If some other community gets pissy about it, who gives a fuck about them? They're not your community. So it doesn't really matter. I think that's crucial, and I think that that's really, really well done. I think the kind of conversation that we're not having is that there's a book released at this power level, and there is the imminent kind of Games Workshop sponsored Pro Tour in America run by Mike Brandt and everyone else. And arguably, you can't really justifiably have a competitive game. You can't.
Not at that level.
Not at that level if you have armies of such a power level. That said, though, the AdMech maybe is the kind of flying in the face of that situation right now. It's I think the thing about it is it's cool if Games Workshop aren't trying to do something, if they're not trying to create a competitive environment or game, but they are. They're very involved in the competitive environment and game. They have most of the people in charge or responsible for the largest tournaments in the world involved in helping make it as balanced and fair as possible. So it really behoves them to try and deal with it. That's why I'm on the other end of it, Neil. I want it to be wild. I want it to be gnarly. Yeah? Because it makes me chuckle. Every time they're like, here's Meta Watch. And it's like, is it take liquefiers? Because fuck off. It's
I mean,
every...
it was that.
yeah. And I would like the game to be more professional so it could be more sports-like. But maintain the elements that are important to it, like narrative, story, it looking good. Those are all really important elements to me. But ultimately, the conversation that's not being had is, it doesn't matter about individual players. It doesn't even matter about individual tournaments. I think really it affects badly the kind of watchability. Because if you're let's say, you guys were talking about League of Legends and Riot, ignoring some of the problematic things that are happening inside and outside of Riot. One of the interesting things. And big shout out to Tryndamere who follows me. Stop sharing weird fucking alt-right stuff, you fucking nutter.
Is that Mark Merrill?
Yeah, fuck me.
It's just centrist stuff.
Super not. Super not.
Rob is so far to the left. He's come all the way round.
I must admit, I don't check it constantly. However, I've never seen anything that's not centrist.
Jesus, he's like a Mumford and Son, is all I'm going to say. The
What's wrong
point.
with Mumford and Sons? They're great.
Oh, don't get me started on Mumford and Sons. You need
no,
to get on Twitter. Anyway, my point is, there's some podcast guy going like, "What the fuck did Mumford and Sons do?"
I'm thinking that as well. Literally, what Mumford and Sons are wrong. I listened to them. I went to see them live. They're great.
Okay. Well, listen. Thanks, yes, meatballs. Love you tons. Right. So, I'm not really sure where my point was going. Oh, my point was
Riot.
Riot is that if you're other game companies looking at Games Workshop, it's a bit embarrassing, really. Like, that's the kind of thing to talk about it as a competitive game or as an esport. And yes, meatballs is correct. That is 100% on the nail. All right, so I think we've covered that pretty well, right? You guys happy with that?
Yeah, I can rant forever, but I just randomly rant. As that Alliance guy found out Friday, he invited me onto his show.
I haven't seen that yet. I'm going to have to watch it now.
It's very funny.
Yes, meatballs. I'm 100% aware of that. I know. Right, so the follow up.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I'll send you some links after it.
Send me some links.
Yeah. They're covered in red and sickles, though, so you might not want to click them. Right, anyway. So the other thing is you have done some electronic judging, right?
Electronic judging?
Well, judging via the internet? Or is that not a thing? Or have we just discussed about it? Okay,
this is a big discussion. Val has this as a big brainchild. That with Minotaur, rightful ruler, there could be the possibility for this. It would need certain other things, like the referee would have to be able to listen to the players all the time and directly converse with them in real time and stuff like that. But there is sort of this idea of that, and it hedges into this idea that there needs to be some kind of referee organization that helps train TOs and referees around the world, and or even bigger brain than that, should there be a sort of global tournament authority like a FIFA?
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Lots to unpack there. Can we start with like a FIFA? Because
well, at the end of the day, the WTC, as you all know, I'm part of the WTC. We're a bunch of corrupt gits. I openly accept bribes in the form of beer. Therefore, FIFA matches my attitude perfectly. I mean, it could be FIFA. There's just some kind of overarching, tournament authorities. A lot of people that sort of talk about the fact that, and it all goes hand in hand with referees, that there should be some kind of referee qualifications and referee, training, Magic the Gathering have, for example. They always go back to Magic the Gathering as the example. Magic has this referee. Magic have a referee training system. You train up, you qualify up, you get a certain rank of referee, and then all Magic tournaments are sanctioned by Magic to a certain level. Like this event is this size, has this quality of referees. Therefore, it's sanctioned by Magic as an official event, and blah blah blah. And there seems an increasing push amongst TOs and amongst gamers that they feel we need this in competitive 40k.
What do you mean they need it in 40k? Like, what do you think they need?
Well, this is the question. What do they need? I don't think we need this. I don't think having an overarching organization that says that will go around and sanction tournaments and say this is a official X tournament is a good thing. I don't think that's a good thing to start with. I think that's a massively slippery slope in terms of, because you're therefore giving a bunch of hobbyists power to other hobbyists say, unless you W do it, and then if it becomes official, so to speak. But even that's a very slippery slope. You're basically going to create a two-tier system of, either adhere to kowtow to what we say is right. And again, this goes into the homogeny thing. It will probably involve, playing the same rules that we say is the right rules to play, or you're not sanctioned. If you're not sanctioned, will people go to your event? I think it's a very slippery slope there, because it comes back to this idea of, you've worked with
a lobbying group, no?
Yeah, but it's
are you the CSPPA in Counter-Strike?
No, I have no idea.
So the CSPPA is a supposed players agency, right? And the entire purpose of it is it's meant to protect the players, specifically in Tier 1 and Tier 2. Recently, the entire... Tier 1 and Tier 2 in Counter-Strike? So Tier 1 is like top tier Counter-Strike, Tier 2 is like the tier below it, right? It's harder to describe than that. Recently, the entire NA Counter-Strike scene, loads of organizations just dropped their teams. And the CSPPA just did nothing, despite ESL pulling team slots for teams who'd already qualified for their league.
Right.
So the CSPPA did nothing. However, when it came to, I believe it was the Blast, the CSPPA called a strike because they were effectively recording player comms to use so their analysts could listen in and talk about things on the broadcast, right? And they called strike and threatened the entire event. And I believe what was happening was, unless you were paying the CSPPA, it was a power play to threaten to shut down the event because they weren't previously paying the CSPPA, so it was a shakedown.
Yeah. And that's what I mean.
If you've got an overarching body where you are certifying certain events, I don't know how I feel about that.
No, I don't. I think it's a super slippery slope in terms of, because it's going to create a two-tiered system, and therefore and therefore it creates an implication. If you're not certified by this organization, you're doing something wrong.
Well, now let me.
But that's not the case. It just could quite simply mean that you, as a TO, don't want to kowtow to these rules or jump through these hoops or whatever. Or in your case, like you said, you pay for whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's the writing is on the wall in that being a case in America anyway, right? With the ITC and also FLG and Games Workshop as an inclusion.
Well, I don't think I know conversations many times with Reese is super against this. I to put the cards out there. He has openly, publicly, multiple times said he's super against this. It's one of the big reasons why the ITC has up until recently not taken a public stance against cheaters. He's super against the slippery slope of becoming the de facto governing body, and he's very aware of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the thing is, so are you pro a governing body, Neil, or are you?
No,
are you
I am.
Anti?
I am anti a governing body. I'm pro setting up some kind of organization that would help coach referees and help TOs get referees or coach referees. And Shield Scale, I've got a lot of experience as a referee, and the guys who come to the referee WTC, I coach them. I coach them extensively before, during, and all these things afterwards, to help them, and they can go back to wherever they came from, and they obviously spread the knowledge base. And the idea is there are a lot of events out there for a lot of TOs that for whatever reason really struggle when it comes to certain situations. And it's, I think it'd be great to have some kind of system in place, like a training system, a coaching system, a program system, to enable people like myself, like the guys from LVO, that referee the FAO, like all these great referees that are around. These people are very good at TOing, refereeing, to help the others, because that help the communities at large. But that's not the same thing as a governing body, if that makes sense.
I think a supporting body would be a great suggestion, especially if it was something done for free. That's one of the things I love most. That's one of the things I love most about Patreon. Especially everyone who listens to The Honest Wargamer and supports The Honest Wargamer via Patreon, because we are I'm going on Jim's show on Duplicity Paint in a week or so to talk about sponsorship in the hobby. One of the intrinsically difficult things I think for the American scene, as is at the moment, is there are so many people who do it for work. And when everyone does it for work, it's very hard. It's very hard to draw lines and for it to not muddy the water. I think that's always going to be problematic. I think that's one of the things I love most about The Honest Wargamer and everything that we do on The Honest Wargamer is because we're sponsored by everyone on Patreon. So really, we're able to live, not we do not live like kings, but we're able to be fair and honest forever because people appreciate the content we have. We have discussions like this that are far-ranging and far-wide, sort of open convos. So one of the things that is really, really important for us is to broach these subjects. But I still wouldn't want to be the supporting body. But someone could set up as a supporting body, and then people could support them via something like via Patreon, because then you could have a bunch of resources and things that are available. Really, what you could have is we produce 40k tournament resources pack. I was just speaking to my very good friend Fish today, and one of the things we were talking about is he likes the cards that you get when you buy. So the unit cards that you get when you play, Death Guard comes out and you've got all the unit cards.
Yeah.
Is that what they're called? I think they're called that.
Yeah, there's something I remember. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But they're out of date if there's a new FAQ.
Yeah.
Like, which I think is an issue, and obviously you can print some stuff off. Like, there is just so many good resources that could be produced to make people play, and to help people play. That I think that's one of those things that as we go forward in time, like, so the thing that Neil was alluding to earlier was, so Minotaur Wargaming are a company. They produce a thing called the Rightful Ruler app, which is an AR, so augmented reality way of tracking bases and measuring. I think I was made aware of it like a year and a half ago. I spoke to Nils on the phone, so he's the lead developer, for a couple of hours. Really nice guy, really motivated, and he's got some really big dreams. And that's all really, really exciting. Like, there's a desktop version that's been pushing that they're pushing for at the moment, and I think lots of that is very exciting, and how that integrates into the system. Problem is that is hard locked financially compared to BCP, which is then hard locked financially, to then Games Workshop Game Support, which is hard locked financially, versus, like, there are a lot of systems that are like existing with each other but independent of each other and not homogenistically put together, because really they're not being developed for the community. Probably they are, but like they're being developed as tools. There is
a business behind it, whatever's been developed, absolutely. But this is it, and the thing
I'm
is,
not against that either. I'm not against that either.
And this conversation about, like, referee development and therefore TO development has been going on for a while. Like a couple of years ago, the American team wanted to fly me over to America to the American team event. They also said, can we pay you to come here to basically tell a certain team to fuck off? And in the end, it's like, actually, no, I can talk. Instead of doing that, why don't I just talk to the TOs that run that event and give them some support and some, advice? And then the TOs told those guys to. And those TOs told those guys to fuck off, and that's what you need. I think there's all these issues about cheating, blah blah blah. Like cheaters pushing, like certain players pushing because they're famous or because of whatever. They're kind of like bullying their way through, pushing through, and TOs are afraid to say against them, all these kind of things. And obviously, there are plenty of guys out there that do a really good job. And it's like spreading that knowledge, because that will get rid of a big issue in the community, which is this perception of cheating and all these sort of negativity. And I think and previously it's been an issue of how would you do that? How would you do that? There's no money to fly me to the UK to coach somebody or to fly Salty John from one side of America to the other. There's no money for that. But this rightful ruler thing has a massive potential for just that, because you could have somebody dialing in, like you say, remotely to referee an event, or to be there in the background as backup for somebody who's on the event, and therefore directly live coaching, because teaching the refereeing, you got to do it live. And this, I think, Minotaur Gaming, not for the streaming, I think there's a niche there for developing referees and TOs that they could look at and could be massive for them.
Yeah, but again, you're just asking for another cost. Like, I mean, looking at the Dallas GT and the terrain, I mean, like, TOs are taking on way too much financially on these huge endeavors. Like, and then not everyone is specifically being paid to make it happen. And I think that's one of those things about the industry as time goes on, that needs to be kind of. Rob, I love cardboard though. Yeah, you do. But it's on the screen now.
But that's a conversation that because there needs to be a culture change, that players need to stop expecting S&M battle report level tournaments with the most gorgeous terrain and gorgeous everything possible. They're the guys in Gibraltar run amazing tournaments, but pay bugger all for it. I think people seriously undercharge tournaments. Like, what's the cost of a tournament in the UK right now, without not excluding food, just like showing up for 2-dayer? Tom, how much does that cost?
50 quid. About
50 quid, right? Yeah. And you're basically having 2 full days of entertainment there. How much you pay for a football ticket, or like a pizza and a cinema ticket or something?
I mean, depends if you support Sheffield Wednesday. That's 40 quid for a crap championship game. So it depends.
It's like, without being rude, the TOs could charge more, which would then cover getting better terrain. All those issues that you say, Tom Dallas GT. Imagine they had a bit more money in their pockets to pay people to spend more time fixing the terrain, and you'd have more money in your pockets to not have volunteers, but to say to somebody like, Tom, instead of playing this tournament, I'm going to pay you to referee it, and you'll get quality people to support events, because benevolence only goes so far.
Calais in 2015, or was it 2016? Either way,
it doesn't take much. to make a difference. I would in theory have head ref the last LGT, and the deal I had with Zach was you cover all my costs, so I don't earn anything, but I'm not out of pocket.
Right, you guys come and see us,
and that's a simple thing. But you can only do that if you have the money. And I think a lot of TOs again, they don't charge enough. They massively undersell themselves.
Yep, I would agree with that.
Massively.
I think that's really important.
Yeah, and like you say, financial risk. What happens if people don't show up? What happens if something falls? How much is Nova trying to raise right now to cover their storage costs?
£12,000 or something.
Yeah, and I asked what that was. It's storage costs. It's storage for all their stuff. Because they had 2 years of not having any income. They can't actually pay to store their shit.
Yep.
And that's a massive problem for them.
Yeah. Did they do well with that?
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't looked at the Kickstarter. But I know, but that's the reason. They haven't made the money there. And I think TOs need to start, protect themselves financially by giving themselves more money to use. You're never going to make a living off it, but give yourself more money there as a buffer, and then use that buffer to invest in paying people to do jobs for you. Be it building the terrain, be it all these things.
It's true. We're a mom and pop. It's because I think maybe it's because of the company. It's a mom and pop operation on all fronts.
Yeah.
With volunteers and everything else, which is insane. But that's mainly because for a very expensive, quite expensive hobby compared to some other hobbies. I think it's actually quite interesting. If you do think about going away for a weekend, I think the guys in the chat are talking about. You could probably spend as much going away for a weekend as you would on a new army, maybe. Close. I think, when you think about it in those terms, I think it's the event going. So Potmeister Mini says this is the same issue that other club sports have. Undercharging, they're not putting on the event expected by participants, and also sounds like Fire Festival.
That's basically what Fire Festival was, right?
Yeah,
500 quid for that? Nah, mate, nah.
And I agree very much with Potmeister. I think that there's a large kind of expenditure that needs to be accrued. On official judging, I obviously would love that, Neil. I'd like there to be official judges at tournaments. I'd like there to be guidelines. I'd like it to make sense. Me and Tom were just talking earlier today or early on the show, just how kind of fun 2-day events or even 3-day events. It kind of it winnows out a little bit, but 5-day events, 5-game events, 2-day events are even pretty funny. You could get 2 or 3. The larger the field, the easier the games 1 to 3 are going to be. Generally.
Which is why I'm keeping all my tournaments to 2 days, 32 players, to make it as hard as possible.
Nails. It's absolutely nails.
It's also because the size of the venue is about 40 players. So,
well, I just think it's really positive for people if they get an opportunity to have a judge available to them, because obviously some of that's really relevant. I would say that most events would do really well with not having a judge, but having someone who's hired to just be the guy who answers questions. Because I think a large portion of people are really pottering through their game as opposed to justifiably playing at a top level where they need a judge.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the thing is, if you're a TO, you've got a lot of other stuff to do than running around answering people's questions all weekend. And as a player, you're trying to play your game. You as a player, judges doesn't work. You get dragged away from your game all the time to answer questions. So having someone as a referee, as a judge, or someone players can go to and say, "Hey, answer this question for me," makes a big difference. And then, but you've obviously got to be you obviously need someone who's got good rules on all these things to do that. So you have to incentivize them from not playing in the first place, which means you have to give them something. Really?
Yeah. It's true. I agree. This is why every event should hire me, Mr. Winters, to panel their events as real Mr. Winters. I think that's fair. Potmeister Mini says, if you take drifting as an example, professional quality events can only come from investment, which can only come from fees and sponsorship. Fees, I think, are the easy way. You slap £10 onto your average ticket price, I think, in the UK, and I think that gives enough money. So obviously, you'd have to upskill that wherever you were in the world, but that would put enough money on top for an event to be able to the larger the event, the more money that is in the pot to provide a service. If you were talking about £10 as a service charge, so typically events for 2 days here are 50 quid, maybe 55. So you're looking at a 20% increase on your ticket price. So just take where your ticket price is. I'd pay the extra like 10 quid if I knew that there were going to be judges, if there were going to be people who were being like paid to make sure the event was run professionally. I knew the train was going to be sweet. Like, I think we're undervaluing events, but then that's because for a long time events have been medium, let's say, like they've been there. Like some of the events I've been to have been like, oh boy, this is a wild ride. You know, and I don't know how much the tickets are for the Dallas event, but the terrain's fascinating, right? Let's put it that way.
It is, and that's another thing. You know, it comes back to this. You know, big doesn't mean better. I think absolutely opposite. I think, you know, making your event a bit smaller so you can absolutely knock it out of the park with the quality of terrain, the quality of boards, just the quality of the player experience on every level is super important. You know, I mean, I got asked, you know, what's the most important? What's the most important free tip you give to a TO? It'd be like toilets, someone to clean the toilets. You know, and it's like, you know, and how many toilets are there? And it's a joke, but so many events fall down on that. And then after that, it's like, you know, quality terrain, make your terrain look freaking good, because your photo people take, because like that photo that Innes put up, right? Mm-hmm. That is going to. What's the impression that Dallas? But people looking at that image, you can think of the Dallas GT, right?
No one's going to remember anything else. Just going to remember that daft board.
But it creates a negative impression, and as a TO, that's you know, that TO has put in how many thousands of hours of time, effort, blood, sweat, and tears to that event, and that photo ruins it. You know, yes. Whereas if they'd have maybe made a smaller event and aimed smaller, so going for as big as possible, they could have nailed it with all the terrain and stuff. And then the photo is, wow, look at that. You know, that's my point.
There's a bit of flock on there, at least. I see some green. So let's hype it up, I think. Thank you to Lavodza Sigma for raiding us with 31 people. I think, are you Spanish? Hello, everyone. Thanks for, I would assume so. This is Tom and Neil. I'm Rob. We're discussing generally some stuff going on in 40k at the moment and where our thoughts and feelings are on that subject. So hello, Iron Wolf, hello. Sergio Heim, Eredicorn. Hi, yes, we're Spaniards. Amazing. Were you guys watching?
Work, Rob. Good prediction.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was good. It was good. Spanish Age of Sigmar community, really big. The 40k Spanish, the Spanish 40k community, huge, right?
After America, biggest in the world. They actually run they run after LPO, the biggest tournament in Spain. They run this team tournament. It's like freaking 700-800 people. It's insane. I need to go at some point. That's just a fact. I need to go there at some point.
Me too.
But it's one of these funny things. It's like, you know, they're this massive community, but because the community is obviously Spanish and therefore not English speaking, none of us know about it. It's kind of hilarious.
Well, if you guys have just the Talavera Grand Tournament.
Talavera. Yeah. If WTC had gone to Spain, it'd be those guys hosting us.
Oh, nice.
Boom.
Well, if you guys haven't tuned in before, Sunday nights, me, Neil, and Tom do some chatting. I'm live every day, midday, so midday UK time, which I have done now for 420 days in a row. And then we also.
Wait, this is 420.
Yeah, 420.
Nice.
And we're also live every Monday night talking Age of Sigmar and every Thursday night talking 40k, as well as doing event coverage on our sister channel, the T Sports Network. So if you guys want to watch like live coverage of Warhammer 40,000 or Age of Sigmar, we have lots of events, so you guys should check that out because it's very good. Yeah, but we don't smell well on Talavera. Nah, it's a joke. I think he's saying that everyone at Talavera stinks.
Entirely possible. I've not been. I don't know. Is there a river that goes through it? You never know. Venice is meant to really smell, you know.
It is. It is meant to really smell. Yeah.
It does. Low tide and heat is bad in Venice.
So what you're saying is go in winter.
Yeah. Very much.
There we go.
So I think that's is that all of the subjects? So we've talked about today we've discussed
we've rambled.
Judging. No, I think we've discussed Drukhari judging and the variety of events. I think they're all really fascinating things. I think the judging thing is going to be very interesting. Obviously, the size and scope of some of the Age of Sigmar and 40k tournaments over the next year are going to be stupendous. As we come out of lockdown, as these tickets sell, as more and more TOs are putting on events, I think that there's going to be a general consensus, like a general kind of like revisiting of most of these subjects time and time again. It's going to be what's going on with a super strong army, what's going on with events, and how can we improve the quality of them generally for people, and then also what do we need to make it so that those events are as fair and as quality as possible. And I think that there's a lot of challenges there for the community to process ultimately.
Yeah. And it's something I'm super passionate about because I've kind of accidentally positioned myself for this Mr. Referee.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like I'm just super passionate. I just want I want the community to grow. I want events to grow. I want to be in a place where everyone's playing 40k and getting the best experience possible at tournaments that they can get.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting.
Very, very, very socialist of me. But I am quite socialist at heart.
Unlike me. Tom, you got any thoughts?
Dirty fascist.
Have you got any thoughts? Nicest thing I've been called today. Have you got any thoughts on any of these things that you think we might have left off the table? Oh, your mic, bud.
Oh yeah, sorry, I muted that, so I moved around. Okay, yeah, not particularly. I did want to give a quick shout out before we left to Chapter Master Valak actually, who had an accident and he's currently in hospital, having wrecked a bunch of bones. So wish him a speedy recovery. But apart from that, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's same. We mirror that sentiment as well. Like I shared it as soon as I saw it earlier. I hope he's really well. I'd like him to come back with some really shit takes soon as. No, I fucking love the guy. I want the guy to recover.
Yeah,
I want more of that terrible takes back. Yeah, I don't want them to go away, Tom, because they fill me with joy. Yeah, so get that guy well. Okay. Yeah, heal him up. Yeah, get him back, so I can disagree with everything he says. Get him in.
Okay. Good.
Yeah,
right.
Get him in.
Okay.
Yeah, like if I could fix him with my healing hands, I'd get onto it, which would be nice. So yeah, that's a nice shout out. Neil, you got any shout outs?
No, not I can think of. Be on my usual. Get on Patreon, Honest Wargamer, support Rob. All the things you do, so that Rob can actually feed himself and not have to dive in rubbish bins because he doesn't want to eat the duck that is Chinese
I'll never stop
restaurants.
I'll never stop that. It's just so fun.
But you do an amazing job. You do an amazing job, and obviously you support WTC, but just generally do an amazing job, Rob. And I think everyone should support you.
While we're on that, Neil, actually, we've still got a couple of tickets. Only a couple of tickets left for the team event at the end of June, I believe, Rob. Right.
Yep.
So if anyone wants to chat, Marcus, I'm looking at you, mate. Anyone wants to come play one day of team tournaments down in Nottingham at the T Sports Arena, go and grab those.
We'll put the link in the chat.
And as soon as we're all vaccinated here in Europe, I know me, myself, Tom, and Ishik are going to come. And Piotr, Tom, Ishik, and Piotr are going to come over and lose.
Yeah.
Badly.
If you're by yourself and you don't have a team and you want to get involved, message me. I'll sort you out on it. It'll be fine.
Okay, brilliant. Well, listen, it's been lovely having you both on the show. Thank you very much. Some really, really fun stuff. How do we get these tickets? No problem. I'll give you a link in the chat in moments. If you just give me half a heartbeat to sort this out. And there we go. Yeah, so... thanks for listening. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Do you guys want to raid someone today? Because we've just been raided by these gentlemen. Do you guys want to raid someone?
Let's have a look.
I'm going to have a quick look. See who's
Neil,
on.
do you want to have a pick, mate?
I can see some really sexy models. Let's have a quick look. You know what?
Let's just ask Neil.
Should we raid Asylum Wargaming? Let's raid Asylum Wargaming. They're live. They're Swedish. They're awesome.
Raid Asylum Wargaming.
And they're actually playing some games right now.
Cool.
Lovely. So we've done that. Thanks everyone for tuning in live. You've all been brilliant. Thank you to you two for joining me. Don't forget to join me tomorrow midday. Also tomorrow at 6 p.m. For the the Games Workshop reveal launch or whatever the flip it.
Oh yeah, it's during the week, isn't it?
Yeah, we need to work this out actually, don't we?
Yeah. So we'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day and see you soon.